If you're a data analyst, data engineer, or BI professional wondering how AI is about to change your job, this video is for you. I'm going to show you exactly which skills are becoming more valuable, which are becoming less valuable, and a realistic timeline for how your role will evolve over the next 5 years. Whether you're already in the field or looking to break in, I'll explain everything in plain terms and link resources that I reference throughout this video in the description so that you can dig deeper and look at the research that I've done to prepare this for you. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, first of all, welcome. And secondly, my name is Kyle Chalmers. I'm accompanied here, at least temporarily, by my newborn son, who is so excited by this topic. You might hear him snoring just a little bit. And so, to give a more professional introduction, I've been in data and business intelligence for around 9 years. I've led and currently lead data teams, and I've been focused on building AI into real data workflows for the past 6+ months. And so, for this conversation, I've conducted a lot of research using deep research features on Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, assembling and synthesizing that information into a NotebookLM, which I will share my sources with you in the description. And I've created some really cool infographics that I think will be great conversation starters and great vehicles to help you understand where our data profession is going. And so, combined with my hands-on experience within this data world, I believe I'm presenting a realistic timeline for how our roles will actually be shifting in the future, too. And so we'll be looking at the current state, the short-term outlook, as well as the long-term outlook for each of these professions. And to preview the structure, first we'll talk about the timeline for these three core data roles of data analyst, data engineer, and business intelligence analyst. Secondly, we'll talk about the specific skill shift that is happening right now for all three of those roles. And then thirdly, we'll talk about the evidence for this AI and data transformation, as well as the evidence against this AI data transformation, because there are some legitimate points on both sides that I want to acknowledge. And I feel compelled right now to do this so that you, as individuals who are looking to get into the data profession and who are already in it and are looking to grow your career, have the information you need to obtain the right skills so that you can be successful in this transition and help lead other data professionals through it. So, with that, let's get into the content. All right, for this first infographic, we'll be talking about the evolution of the data profession. And we have along the top here our current state, near future, which is 1 to 3 years, and then long term future, which is 3 to 5 years away. And then we have our job roles of data analyst, data engineer, and business intelligence analyst. And I'll say you may have mixed responsibilities across these different roles depending on how and where you work too. I know I've played multiple different roles as a data engineer or data analyst, BI, depending upon what the job has called for me. And depending upon your company, your environment that you're in, if you're in the early adopters or if you're working in a large company with a lot of legacy system, you may see some of these AI concepts adopted earlier or later on these timelines. And before we get into actually the content of these visuals, I just want to define some very important terms that are good to know to understand AI within the context of data and really within the larger context of everything that it can be used for. So, context engineering is an extremely important concept because it's basically your ability to organize the workspace and instructions so AI stays focused on the right information. Model context protocol is a standardized tool plug that lets AI easily connect to different apps and data. AI agents, independent digital workers that essentially take a goal and decide how they can accomplish it using the tools that they have available to them. And then orchestrator, which is kind of the management system that coordinates different AI tasks to finish, different AI agents to finish different tasks. And so when you hear me utilizing that language throughout this, you have those definitions. With that, let's get into the first line of data analyst. Specifically speaking to this first box here, it's not too long ago where I had people submitting tickets, sending me messages, and then I would take those requirements and ultimately execute them myself, write the SQL, build the dashboard, perform the analysis. And then maybe I would go to a chatbot to say, hey, I don't know how to do this in SQL, or I don't know how to do this in Python, and it would help me. But what I've been teaching on this channel is closer to the near future and the long-term future, where AI is moving towards becoming a co-pilot and integrating within our systems via Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and other standard tool integrations that I've also talked about here, where instead of you getting that request and me following ticket, developing whatever it needs to be, then I get that ticket and then I say, hey, AI, handle this. It has access to the systems. It has the context engineered for it, so it understands your data, the different tools it has available to it, and then ultimately produces the output, and you're there to guide it as a coach and work with it and iterate with it until it gets the work refined to the output that you want. And then the long-term future, what we're moving to, is autonomous AI agents that we orchestrate and we manage, where AI is the executor. Say you have the stakeholder who sends you a message, submits a ticket. AI is monitoring that, takes that ticket, acts upon it, presents the human in the loop, which would be you, with the results. You say, hey, this looks good, or why'd you do this? You do some quality checking investigation of it, and then ultimately you're approving or denying it to, and then AI will iterate again, present it to you again, and then once it gets it right, deliver the final output. For this second line here, for data engineers, we have AI augmented building as the current state, where yes, data engineers are using AI, but for code generation and more for simplistic tasks, and it's not integrated into their workflow. And they're still driving the bus when it comes to manually generating that code. However, more and more what I've seen with people who I've worked with, including myself, they have integrated AI into their work and have it actually generate the code, feed it the data, and have it suggest the schemas, test the pipelines, and monitor the pipelines. I know in my case, I've had thousands of lines of JSON data that I've needed to parse out into logical tables. And I said, hey, AI, can you help me do this? And it has helped me transform that JSON data into tables. And then lastly here, similar to data analysts, the AI managed pipelines. So you have agents who are working on your pipelines where they're building and self-healing data pipelines. So if you get an error, then an agent will be on standby to monitor and help diagnose what went wrong and fix it. And data engineers will be focused on higher level architecture, designing better systems, thinking about the more critical thinking value add work for how we can best organize our data to deliver the most value to our business. And now we're on to our last line of BI analysts. And this is actually the area where I think AI adoption might be the slowest. Whereas in data analysts, sometimes they're working with Python and SQL to perform the analysis, and AI is really, really good at code generation, and data engineering even more with code. So I can see the adoption being even faster there. BI analysts are working the least with coding languages in my experiences, where they are doing data modeling and working with SQL and Python in different cases. But a lot of times, the most popular tools in their suite of tools are softwares like Tableau, Power BI, Quick, which are drag and drop visualization softwares, which I haven't seen a tremendous amount of integration of AI capabilities into those software platforms as of this date. However, that can change in the future. Discussing the current state. So we have very similar to the data analyst, you receive a ticket or you receive a request, you follow that set of requirements to model the data and then ultimately build a dashboard that has that data flowing into it. And in the future, what I believe will happen is that you'll have AI drafting these initial dashboards and data models, which you can do to a certain extent with tools like Claude Code, spinning them up on websites and having it actually do that for you. But it's not integrated into the popular software tools yet, like I mentioned earlier. And really, this will allow the analysts to direct the narrative for how they want the visuals built and be coaching the AI to ultimately build and draft the story for the dashboard that they want to tell. For the last box here, you have curating AI driven insights. What does this mean for BI professionals? Well, really, it means that BI professionals are curating interfaces with data. And that can be chat interfaces where somebody is initiating a chat in Slack and has an agent present that is looking at particular data marts or basically stores of data that are curated for a specific purpose to answer that person's question and presenting them with a visual, or having AI agents integrated within visuals that are there to answer more detailed questions or other questions about the data that the user ultimately has. In summary, hopefully you all can see a consistent pattern here where the execution is moving away from humans to AI. However, humans are moving much more to oversight, management, and direction setting, and working with AI as a partner to iterate, quality check, and ultimately guide to help deliver it to the right solution or the right product visuals, analysis, whatever it is you're trying to build. And this is to say that AI, in this sense, it is not about replacement. Yes, it is replacing functions of our jobs that we used to do, but we're looking now to where are the areas where humans can most add value outside of the execution of doing the work. And it comes with critical thinking and thinking about how to design these different systems, solutions, and analyses. And so, with this stage set, what does it mean for your skill development? And that excellent transition leads us to the second infographic of the great skill shift from execution to oversight. Now, where I started my career was in this stage one, and I imagine a lot of you have started your career in this, where you're writing code, you're building data visualizations, you're delivering analyses. However, once you start moving to integrating AI into your work, you'll find yourself more and more in stage two and stage three at this point. Where for me, I'm thinking about how I can integrate AI into my systems to solve the business problems and give it the context that it needs and the tools it needs in order to solve those problems. And then once it gets those problems solved, then we move to orchestration, right? Where we deploy that as an agent, right? We deploy the solve business problem that AI has been able to with the context that it has and tools that it has in order to solve that problem as an independent worker. And then we start to become a manager of systems of AI solving this problem, AI solving that problem, and making sure those systems are acting and performing as we would expect them to. And then the last stage here, which again, this is kind of embedded throughout the previous three stages as well, where you want to be validating your work at every single portion of this career path, but you're really focused on creating quality, doing optimization tasks is what I would say here to govern, validate, and optimize the AI systems that you have built for the problems that you are working to solve. So, with this career path, how does this translate to changing skills? What are the skills that are becoming less valuable versus more valuable? Well, all of that manual execution stuff that is slowly being designated out to I would say is becoming less and less valuable, where AI is able to, frankly, write code and run code and build things faster and better than I or most other people could ever do. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't still run manual code because what I have up in here in terms of business context, nuances about our data is still really important. But I'm doing it in a quality checking fashion of AI as opposed to sitting down and writing the initial drafts. And so those skills are still valuable, but you're just not going to be judged on how quickly you can bring code to life. Rather, you're going to be judged upon your judgment on the quality of that code and recognizing the nuances that comes with quality checking AI's work. And so that said, the skills that are becoming more valuable are those critical thinking skills where you're talking about how to design an orchestration system, how to design context in order to have AI successfully solve problems, produce analyses, produce data visualizations, build data pipelines. What are the tools it needs access to? What is the information that it needs to know in order to be successful? And ultimately, what are the needed actions it has to take in order to deliver the output that you desire? And there's one particular element here called semantic layers that I want to call out, where if I'm going to define semantic layers, it is essentially translating technical data into plain English. So if I say to AI, hey, give me all the sales data, it knows to go to the transaction amount column in SumDet, where it is a translation of the technical data term to the plain English AI term that it will recognize and automatically know to go to when certain data is requested for it. Another way to say it is a semantic layer is a translator that turns messy database code in columns into clear business words for the AI to understand. And for these specific roles, you can see the patterns of critical thinking and creating the right context for AI to be successful within data analysts, data engineers, BI analysts. And all of this to say as well, you will be utilizing AI to help you with all of these different skills, all of these different things that you are doing in your data roles. And so the fundamental thing here is that you need to know how to work with AI, how to prompt it, how to connect it to tools, and ultimately how you can get the most out of it, which is why I've created this channel to go over how to integrate AI with tools, different methodologies for getting the most out of AI with data, and why I'm committed to continue making this content so we can all succeed as data professionals in this new world. For example, semantic layers is going to be a topic that I will talk about on my YouTube channel in a later video. You will not be creating semantic layers by going through columns and saying, hey, this column, when I say this in plain English, it really means this in database code or database columns. You will be utilizing AI to go through and do that task for you while ultimately quality checking and reviewing that output too. And specifically for semantic layers, I'll say that's probably a task that both data engineers and BI analysts will do, and not necessarily just confined to the BI analyst profession as it's displayed here too. So hopefully all of this sounds logical up until this point, but let's actually look at whether or not this transition is actually happening. And that leads us to this third infographic, the evidence for and against the AI transformations of data roles. I know it's very easy to get caught up in the hype or the dismissiveness around AI. However, the truth is a little messier, kind of like the poop that my son might have just taken. So, I'm going to present you all both sides honestly so that you can make your own judgment around the skills and the pace of this transition when it comes to AI transforming data. All right, the poop situation has been resolved, and my son now is off resting. So, getting back to the topic at hand here, I realize there are a lot of statistics cited on this infographic. So, I will provide a report that lists all of the sources for these statistics in the description as well. To speak to the left side of this infographic for the evidence supporting transformation, without reading off all of the statistics there, I would summarize it like this. If you've early adopted AI and have integrated it into your systems, you've really seen productivity gains and the value of it. And that's really the reason why I started this YouTube channel, is because I was able to integrate AI into my systems and saw that there was lacking knowledge around how to do that for the data industry. And so these videos and all the content I produced before and all the content I'll produce after will be focused on maximizing this productivity and helping us actually realize these improvements. And as far as these other three bullets here, they're really related to the macroeconomic jobs environment, where people who have AI skills get more money, get a higher salary, and then skills for AI jobs are changing more rapidly than any other industry. And then also, AI itself is projected to create more jobs than it displaces, and that creates needs for new skill sets. And so ultimately, what we're seeing here is that there's real productivity gains and real changes that are coming in the job market as we know it today. With all of this evidence supporting transformation, there's a real case that for the people who lean in to AI, there is potentially real upside. Now, on the other side of the equation in the evidence for skepticism, I see really three main arguments here where companies are struggling to actually make generative AI productive and implement it, where oftentimes projects are not delivering the efficiency or the productivity gains that they promised, and they are taking longer than expected to actually deploy into their production environments. And secondly, there's the data environment, where oftentimes organizations struggle with their data quality, and their unstructured data may be hard for AI to ingest and actually produce insights out of. And so the context that they have internally is not in a good enough place for them to ultimately derive value out of it. Which, side note, that's why my last video around the product requirements prompt is actually a tool for you to overcome data issues as an obstacle. So, very small plug there. That said, the last argument here is that AI might not necessarily expand jobs or change jobs. It could just completely automate jobs, where there is a significant risk of job displacement, particularly with roles in repetitive tasks. And for this, I'll say I've covered this within my last section where I talked about how we're going to be moving away from manual code executioners and writers and more to reviewers and systems organizers too. And so I think this is a very fair point, where if your job is to straight SQL develop, that job might not exist in a few years, because frankly, generative AI can do that faster and better, especially given the right context and tools, than pretty much all of humanity can do it. So I think there's very much some legitimate arguments on both sides here. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. If I missed any arguments for skepticism or supporting transformation, so please leave those below in the comments. But ultimately, my takeaway here is that this transformation is real, but it is uneven and messy. There are going to be situations where AI doesn't deliver the value that you expect it to, in situations where it does. Success really depends upon your strategic implementation, your data quality, your ROI measurement is a very important one, and how you overcome the challenges to actually implementing AI. On a personal note, it's taken me a while to get where I am within my own AI education, and I still have a long way to go, even though I've done a lot of research and really have put in a strong effort to educate myself. But I've experimented, I've tried different things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. Ultimately, there are enough strong use cases here for when you find the right integrations, the right problems to solve, and you figure out the right way to solve them with AI, undoubtedly, I think that you will see return on that investment. But it's a matter of finding the right opportunities and getting the right support to do it too. So hopefully, this equips you with the knowledge for where the data industry is going for the next few years. And one last note before wrapping up, here is my Claude research backing up the infographics I showed, as well as the ChatGPT deep research, the Google Gemini deep research, as well as the NotebookLM tool, which I use to assemble all of this and ultimately create the infographics too. And I will share these sources with you all, the deep research reports, as well as the prompts, so you are aware. And I move my head down just a little bit for the screen so you all can see Notebook LM. Just anecdotally, this is an extremely helpful tool for learning about different topics and conducting deep research and ultimately creating useful tools to help you understand and learn a concept, where you can create infographics like I did for this video, as well as audio, video, reports, and a whole bunch of other really, really cool stuff. To wrap up, I will come out and say I am biased, and I think the data AI transformation is upon us. The good news is that we are right at the beginning of it. The timeline is real. Roles are shifting from execution to oversight over the next few years. Now, you may ask yourself, now that we're at the end of this video, all this information is great. Those infographics were cool. But what should I do about it? What should we do about it? Well, I'd offer a few things. Learn how to use AI with data and how it can enhance analysis, pipeline construction, visualization, and more, whatever you're doing within data right now. Stay educated on frameworks for how to successfully implement and measure it, and grow your critical thinking, domain expertise, design thinking, communication skills, context engineering abilities, and more. You'll still need to understand the foundational tools in any data person's skill set, like SQL and analysis principles, but just getting faster at coding Python and SQL, at things that AI will do, will ultimately provide diminishing returns to you. And get familiar with AI specific terms like MCP, AI agents, context engineering, semantic layers, orchestration, and more. And maybe to offer even two more specific concrete steps as opposed to the general things to do, the next time you are prompted to build a pipeline, create a report, do an analysis, see how much you can do with AI. I cannot recommend that enough, that you start using AI tools in your workflow now, not to replace yourself, but to see how much you can do with it and what it can do and what it can't do. And then, as a second step, if you are not already, subscribe to my channel here. I promise it will be worth your time, and I will continue to work hard, do the research to provide you with valuable and practical ways to integrate AI in your day-to-day work life. This shift is happening unevenly. Your company may be ahead or behind, but the direction is clear. And this is not about fear, it's about positioning yourself where you can add the most value where you are positioned for a long and fruitful career once the AI transformation truly transforms the data industry. So, again, please like, subscribe, comment with your questions, thoughts, perspectives, other resources I should check out, and ideas you may have for future videos. I am all ears. And as always, thank you so much, and I will talk to you next time.